Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. I'm First Melon, and today we'll be looking at a quick look at Operation Octo. So, the developer reached out to me about this game overall, and to be honest, it kind of reminds me of that sort of tower defense meets Plants vs. Zombies type style of gameplay. Don't really know much more beyond what's on the Steam page at the moment, but I'm kind of looking forward to kind of like trialing this out and kind of going through from scratch. And kind of maybe doing a bit more on the idea of like my thought process, my impressions and things like that as well, because I think it'll be quite useful for the developer overall, kind of getting a good grasp of stuff. So, from what I'm made aware of, I think we have a timer going down. Pause straight away. So, probably one thing I probably would say straight away, just given the fact that I have pause and I have a timer that seems to be going down with waves coming in and stuff like that, having a way to pause the game but I can still see the map would be kind of useful, just because with a lot of stuff that has timers, it's just kind of that little bit nice to be able to have the ability to kind of like see what's going on and apply what you need to be able to do, especially in stuff that has timers and stuff that require strategy and things. Just giving that time to think can be pretty useful. If it's meant to be a difficulty thing, that's probably absolutely fine. But yeah, I'm trying to learn stuff, and having a timer immediately kick in is kind of not a bad thing, but it can sometimes be a bit daunting, especially for people starting off with things like that as well. So let's figure this stuff out. So I can move around, we can do all the cool stuff, that's kind of nice, and we can buy units. Okay. So, click to place a turret. I can place a turret, we can put it there, 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 and there. Let's put it here, covers more area. I think that's a good strategy to start with, and we'll go from there. Actually, I will adjust some of the music volume there, just because I thought that was a little bit loud to start with, just on my own end. But yeah. Like, games like this require a lot of strategy and stuff, and I feel like having a live pause rather than a non-live pause is more useful. Although I do like this idea of being able to move about and stuff, right? Let's put that there. Covers that and move the other one next to it, and then we'll have like two lines of stuff. Maybe we should protect this more. That'd be a good idea. Let's do that then. Set the protection up. So we've got my line of protection, plus my oysters that do stuff. I will admit, I am kind of like a fan of the art style and stuff. I think that is kind of like really unique in a way. Okay, so I assume that is like kind of like ongoing currency, and we have level-based stuff. Okay, cool. I'm kind of interested to figure out, so there's a fair amount. I assume Super Boss, stuff like that. Yeah, guys, kind of reminds me of that sort of Plants vs. Zombies vibe a bit more there. Let's look at the manual and see what we got, first of all. I kind of like figuring this stuff out. So, we're going through it all. Toughness and stuff like that, them being averages. Okay, so average toughness, heavy damage, range, short, and speed, average. I think one point I pretty put on this, if we're sort of like nitpicking on things, is just because with units and stuff, because we know that they have like certain levels of things, like having a numerical value sometimes is easier to understand kind of differences rather than just sort of like a rating to them. Because when I've got like average speed and then I look at this sort of average damage, they're two different ranges, which is very hard to distinguish between. So having a numerical value sometimes makes it a little bit easier. Don't know how it's programmed, but that's probably one thing I'd probably pick on if I was there. But other than that, like, I actually kind of like the character designs in that. Like, it's really unique in an interesting way. So yeah, let's look at the pistol shrimp. So shoot shells towards nearby skeletons, a practical turret equipment with pressurized galvanization pistol intended for kicking the skeletons' butts only. Cannot spark up light or boil water. So I assume that's sort of a mechanic that we'll end up going through as well. Stuff like that where it's like part mechanic, sometimes highlighting them as part of the mechanic design is kind of nice, just so we know that they may be like mechanics other things use. I think that's kind of like a useful thing if they are. Savvy uses this instrument as a flashlight or heater. the flashlight with heater are ill-advised. Cannot regenerate claw, does not eat. So yeah, this understanding of kind of like what the mechanics are is kind of like going through stuff. But again, we're here to learn, we're here to learn. Which is pearls for you to collect, to purchase turrets with. Very self-explanatory. But yeah. It's one of those things where, like, if this is something just like it's just flavor text, okay, it's flavor text and stuff like that, having distinguishing between interesting mechanics and stuff is something important. We've got skeletons. You'll only attack turrets when there is no way to reach you. Okay. That's kind of nice to know, actually. That's really useful to know. That's kind of nice information. So it comes to you alone, ignores and walks around turrets. So this, we know this will walk around turrets, while like we may have other ones that moves towards you and hits turrets with the sword along its way. So this one will actually go through. So that's an interesting point to point out, and I think that is kind of nice to know, that this one will avoid turrets, while this one won't. So that's an interesting thing, and maybe sort of like a wave management, if we do get that, the ability to know what waves are coming and stuff would be kind of cool. Ah, so skeleton radar, that's kind of nice to know. Okay, so we got that, and then we have the choice to kind of pick units. So we'll commence the field test. And I assume I'm the one that's important, then. That is kind of nice and interesting to figure out, actually. Let's put that there, because it will cover most things for now. Skeletons are wearing bandanas, only come after you when they attack. Oh, okay. They only come after me. Cool. So basically, I want to kind of like avoid them as much as possible. It's kind of nice that explains it, and even though that I took the time to read the tooltip, it's nice that I kind of got the positive feedback of like, okay, I know what I should be doing, and I should learn to avoid stuff. So, like, I can play around that idea a little bit more. Let's just try and cover these guys a little bit, so, you know, put ourselves, like, here. I guess the other thing I'm probably unsure on is knowing how much health stuff has. I guess is probably, like, a little bit of a niggle. So, like, if stuff is taking damage, I don't know. Yeah, so if a client gets damage, you receive damage portion. Okay, I receive damage based upon its proportion. Okay. That's nice to know. So I need to defend them at all costs, basically, is what you're saying. Okay. Okay, so they wake up again in a bit. I do like the art style, though. Like, I generally do. I think it's kind of interesting in that kind of, like, way. A little bit kind of hectic to begin with. Pick everything up. And 10 of those coins. No idea what the coins are for, but let's move on. Yeah, and then we've got that guy here. What does he do? So, where's protective shield? The grants extra toughness. So, basically, extra toughness. So, this is where that tooltip is different. So, like, this one here has a secondary tooltip for, like, will only attack turrets when there's no way to reach you. So you probably could explain this as like a keyword or something like that, which would be a short way of doing it and explaining what the keyword does. So it could be something as simple as like a good example of that is like Magic the Gathering has something called Menace, which means that enemies can't block it unless 2 enemies block it, kind of thing. So you could use like a keyword like that to explain this particular thing. And then you could apply that keyword to all of the different things after the fact and just explain what they are with the tooltip, where basically if you kind of like hover over it, highlights it, and then brings this tooltip up, which would be a lot simpler, and then you could apply that to anything. So like this one here, I'm assuming this one will do the same as this because there's no extra tooltip that is secondary to this thing, right? with the helmet skeleton. If I'm wrong on that, that's because my assumption is wrong, which is just that information. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, again, I'm probably being a little bit more nitpicky. I'm going to share some damage for you when hurt, so that's kind of nice to know. I like the fact that the towers don't get destroyed. That's kind of nice in a way that Plants vs. Zombies was kind of punishing. Like, if you lost on a particular wave and you lost everything, you had to rebuild it, which meant you were, like, it compounds the losses. This just means that if your setup is terrible, you can kind of semi-fix it. Like, for the next wave, so that's kind of nice. I do like the fact you have the maneuverability as well. Okay, so undiscovered on that. We've got that guy and that guy as well. So let's commence. And the animation is actually pretty smooth. Like, even for like a 2D sprite, the fact that they actually have a turning animation is really kind of nice, and it kind of smooths out the game a little bit, right? Let's set this up for defending this. That's a good idea then. And do the same for this guy. So we'll defend my sort of generation as such. Just for those skeletons. Do that. Okay, so that guy doesn't hunt me down, basically. It's a nice thing to know. I like the fact it tells me off screen that I do get the chance to like generate the pearls or energy from like where they are, and I like the fact that I can't control the energy generation. I think that was something about like Plants vs. Zombies that was kind of a little bit frustrating sometimes to deal with, because like you had to have spaces to generate more sun and kind of go through that whole point. And we have a bit of a bullet hell. I like that. It keeps you more engaged in it. I think that's something that I think a lot of places like that don't realize. Like, engagement sometimes is more important. Put that down. Like, Plants vs. Zombies kept engagement on because of the fact that you could still put stuff down like this can, but I like the fact that you get to have that maneuverability and avoid shots, which avoids damage. When you still have like things you need to protect. Actually, that's very frustrating. Fine. Ooh, a new turret. Bumperfish protects your turrets by deflecting enemy projectiles. That's kind of nice. So that's going to be something useful for what we just did there. I like the color differences, kind of explains exactly what they're useful for. Like, if going through like tutorial stuff, because this enemy got introduced, like, at that particular battle, it would be nice to introduce the defense immediately before this enemy gets introduced, right? So it kind of makes the strategy more aware that you've got the solution to the problem that ends up happening just as sort of like a playthrough. The main reason I think that is because, like, if I had lost that, I had no way of dealing with stuff that was out of range, which can sometimes feel a bit hard by, and I feel like it's kind of very frustrating to deal with. If it's like, oh, they're attacking all the plans and I can't deal with them unless I build something there, which can be very annoying. Again, because with the timer and stuff, it makes it kind of very difficult to understand what's going on. Like, the main solution I would put on there would kind of like improve like the gameplay aspect of this is kind of the ability to pause by like hitting space or something, right? I'm already using the WSAD keys to move around, so that's actually really good. But they're not. They're kind of like just defensive, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna play with just being defensive. Like that's not a bad thing. So that goes here. Just we can maybe defend that. I like the maps become basically part of the like the problem rather than just like always a solution. So like in most cases, like I can use these to defend stuff, but also as well we're gonna have issues with like trying to manage everything. Here I think that's more of an issue of the fact that I've kind of got Yeah, so this is this is the issue that comes up because the fact that I technically don't have a way to deal with them as such, right? So like it's kind of like the issue of being kind of proactive and reactive, right? And it seems like a slight difference, but it's kind of a very important distinction on like what you want to happen. So for me, like most of the cases, I want to be proactive in setting up defensive, like the defenses, but I don't have a way to be proactive. Now again, it kind of depends on the intent and kind of like what you kind of like want to happen. Like, just because the fact that I'm, like, complaining about it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a solution for it immediately. There could be a solution later, and it still succeeds, so it's not like it's that bad overall. And, like, the timer can be very important. So going through everything at the moment, like sort of like my initial kind of, like, first impressions. I love the character designs. I think they have really good character. I think that's absolutely brilliant. The stat-wise, I'd probably say having a numerical value, maybe, rather than just, like, average and stuff. Like, average, when it's, like, this low of toughness, is very generic, and I don't know what that means. It's kind of like, I have nothing to compare this to, but if this is, like, a toughness of 1, and then say, like, this is a toughness of 3, I could understand that this is better than the other one. Like, all this says bulky, or this is average. So I'm assuming, like, is every enemy have average toughness? Or... Like this is average still, but it actually has more toughness than this. So a numerical value is sometimes a little bit more distinctive in this case, just because I'm nitpicking here. And as I said, like, most of the stuff is just me being essentially a pain in the ass. I'm not going to deny that. Like, I am being a pain in the ass in this, because I will say it, I kind of like the idea of this game actually a fair amount. Right? So I'm going to be more critical on that point because I kind of like the idea of the game and how it's functioning and what's going on. And with any strategy game, I think control is very important. So think of like FTL and stuff like that. The ability to pause and plan stuff out is very important. And to be able to plan stuff out, you need to have 2 bits of information. It's the ability for time, which is something that when stuff is happening, this doesn't have the ability to react, which... you by pausing it means you can react to stuff a little bit better, and stuff takes time to kill, so there is a sort of like TTK for it as such. So the ability to kind of like interact with that a bit more freely is very important, and that's kind of like one thing I probably pick on is like the ability to pause, be like, okay, what's going on? What do I need to do? I can't move during that time, that's absolutely fine, but the ability to kind of think, okay, I need to build something over here, and I go over there and build it. Like that's kind of, that'd be a nice benefit to myself with stuff being so hectic. It's like a little bit too much early on, maybe, like I could probably argue. I assume it's like a mini boss level, just because the fact that it has a ring around it, maybe something a bit different. Here we go. Greetings, Dr. Odin. Looks like field tests are going well. You have proven your effectiveness of my combat turrets in fending off humans. Oh, they're undead humans, so a little bit different there. And hey, you found the lost bumper fish blueprint. I built a couple of bumper fish around the area. Our research must go on. My lab partner. Remember, us intelligent sea lies must unite. The ocean of our world, humans must not defile it as they did to the rest of the planet. That's been signing out. Ah, cool, there's a good bit of story about that and stuff going on. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting thing. And this is absolutely brilliant. I love this idea. This is really cool. This has grabbed my attention so much more than everything I've just gone through. So they fixed turrets down, and I only have the cannonball enemies which are going to shoot at me directly, which means that the only way to kill them is to bounce them off the fish, and I can't build anything. I don't generate energy. That is really cool. It's a puzzle in itself, right? So essentially, I've got to avoid these guys and hide behind the turrets consistently. Okay, game. Okay. This is where you kind of like, you flip the script on me. I get the appeal of this now. This is good. Works really well. This is where the pausing and stuff is like really important. I think the only thing I probably would say to this, which I'm going to test now. Okay. So this is where I probably add a little bit more difficulty, and I'd probably be a little bit mean to the players on this front. Just because, you know, I'm a glutton for punishment. I will be mean to players in this case. In this particular scenario, with this being a challenge, I 100% agree that the bounce or the return shots on these should still be able to damage me as a player, right? And I'll explain my logic behind that. So essentially, in this particular scenario, it's a puzzle. It's like a strategic puzzle. I need to hide. I think the slight homing effect on the bouncing is absolutely fine. In the sense of like, if they hit it, it bounces back directly towards the enemy that shot it, or the nearest enemy, because I think that's a fair trade-off. But I think the fact that I should still be able to take damage from their shots is something that should happen as a trade-off. So like, I can't get in the way of the blocked shots that bounce back, which adds a bit more strategic and vulnerability to what's going on, right? So essentially, their shots may not deal damage, say, to my turrets, but they're still live to me, yeah? Because I have the ability to move, yeah? So I should be able to avoid this anyway, and if I get hit, it's my own fault, yeah? Like there, for instance. Ooh. The blowfish. Blobfish explodes and kills all skeletons around it. Gives you a large pearl for every skeleton blown up. So basically like the spud turret. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about that level because I like the puzzle aspect of it, right? So this is where I'm always going to be on the person that tends to make games harder than easier because of different reasons, right? So because the fact that I have the ability to avoid stuff and move about, I don't think the reflective shots should be something that I can not get hit by. Because if I get in the way of them, I deserve to take damage, basically. That's more of a difficulty scaling thing, and if it's not the intent of the developer, that's absolutely fine. But I completely agree that I should be able to take damage from shots that get reflected by this if they're being directed at the enemy anyway. Essentially, the enemy doesn't take damage, I take damage. That's kind of like par of the course. It makes more sense that way because the shots are still live as such. But if they're program-wise, like that's the way they want to do it, that's absolutely fine. I get the intention of it as well, but I'm the person on the idea of the fact that because I have the ability to move, I already have the ability to move out the way of stuff, so therefore I don't need the extra assistance in that particular sort of puzzle strategy type scenario, which would extend to these fish in general, right? I think the bullets should always still be live, and they should be live constantly, which then kind of means that you don't need to worry about the color. Now, that's me nitpicking again. Like, I will admit, like, I am being kind of more critical of this game overall, but I hope that kind of, like, shows through just, like, how much I actually kind of really do enjoy the idea of this. Because I love Plants vs. Zombies. It was one of those things that I kind of got addicted with at one point. Field view. That's nice. So this is where I, like, say, like, the pause menu should come out like this. And I should be able to do that, like, any point during the game. It'd be nice because it means that I can't move, but I can plan what I need to do. So we're going to start off with straight away. We need to essentially defend ourselves. And knowing what enemies are coming would be nice. So like an enemy listing over here, maybe. I don't know how much space it takes up because the UI is quite large. It would just give the ability to be like, okay, I need these particular stuff. But again, that's kind of like me slightly nitpicking. Not there. The main thing is, I always say, like, if I'm nitpicking like this, I think in most cases it shows that I generally do care about the game more often than not, and then, like, it kind of shows that aspect through, right? Okay. Because, I mean... at that point, I have an investment in the argument as such, right? So I want to get as much out of it as I can. I will admit, like, it's nice. It's fast-paced, which is really cool. I do like the fact that it's fast-paced, like when action is going on. And I've got to plan around. I can't just, like, stay not moving. I will say the overall start is kind of like not easy, but like there's a good amount of difficulty kind of understanding as such, right? So like it's enough to make me panic, but I still have the tools to kind of like maintain the solution. Yeah, so I can pause with escape. I think the pause should be on the spacebar with that, and I should be able to see the field. I mean, again, I'm moaning at small things at that point. Like, it's more of the intent than part of design, but it's kind of like what the expectation is. I think that's kind of like what I'm looking at, because again, like, because it reminds me of that sort of like Plants vs. Zombies type of play style and such. It kind of like, I can't help but compare it to it, right? Because essentially, like that's where the inspiration comes from. Like for good or bad, if the inspiration comes from that sort of aspect, then I've got to then kind of like be like, okay, this is how I compare it to as a set standard. And I will say now, Plants vs. Zombies is unfair to compare anything to it, because it was such an iconic game for its time as well, but I don't think this does, like, too bad gameplay-wise. Like, it's more interactive. I like that aspect of it, definitely. There's more going on. So it's the same sort of mechanics, like every time you complete a level you get something out of it as well, which is kind of cool. Business permit, a legal document from an unspecified human civilization. Salutations, Dr. Odin. What's that you found? A poor rejected retail permit, forsaken by its human owner. I've always wanted to run your own shop in these oceans. Looks like I now have the legal requirements to sell my latest gadgets. You picked up some human trade currencies from the front line too. These are worthless metals and you can't eat them. I love that idea. I, for one, love shiny stuff. I would be glad to take those coins off your tentacles. Come and spend those coins at my shop. Gotta keep the aquatic economy running. I like that idea. That's kind of cool. So Meditector makes defeated skeletons drop random coins. Okay, so essentially that's like just free money. I assume that's like the thing you meant to buy anyway. So, if I'm going through everything else as well, and we're sort of like nitpicking on stuff, because I know it's all demo and it's like a tutorial phase and everything else as well. I'd probably shorten a lot of the tutorial phase down a little bit. I'd slow it down just with the active pause, because the active pause creates essentially the illusion of time management as well, which makes things a lot easier for you to understand. Which means that, like, when I'm trying to make decisions, I don't have to worry about what's going on. I can just pause it, then think, okay, I need to do this, 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 and then go through. If part of the difficulty is the fact that you kind of need to manage things live, I get it, I completely understand it, but that's just kind of like my own perspective. With stuff like this, Plants vs. Zombies and kind of like games similar to that effect with Tower Defense, normally give you the ability to kind of like set up before a phase. And the main thing for that, and the reasoning behind it, is it gives you the ability to develop a strategy for what needs to go on. The disadvantage of those is that it gives you time, but it takes away knowledge, right? So you don't know exactly what enemies are coming and in what places they're coming. And this is sort of the trade-off that you get with it. So for me, in most cases, I got the ability to move around. I can place things where I want them to be. Oops, sorry, my controller fell straight to the floor there. Which again is kind of like really good. I have movability. I don't need to worry about the economy at the moment. They come from the map as such, and you can really develop that puzzle aspect with those challenges type things, which I think is a really, really cool point in the game with stuff like this, where they like you fixate on like one enemy and you have the stuff to counter it, but your maneuverability becomes the solution. Essentially, it's like a skill test, right? And that's such a cool way to do like a challenge bit. Like, that is so good, and I think that's one thing you should lean into it more, right? Really emphasize that bit of like, these are sort of challenge things, put rewards behind them, and like, you've got to complete the run with just these particular like things and stuff. Like, maybe have very low economy, you can only put certain turrets down in particular areas, and you got to try and like maneuver things around, and like there's only like one way to go around things, you can only avoid it. Maybe stuff constantly keeps chasing you, and you can put stuff where they can continually shoot but they can't take damage. That's really cool as well, like a racetrack or something like that. Like there's so much useful around that puzzle mechanic instead of just like a normal tower defense, that I think you could really lean heavily into and could like really do cool things, especially like as offshoots to like these normal phases, right? How easy that is to sort out and put into it, I'm not going to say that's easy, because it isn't, sorry. And like changing stuff like that can be very hard to set up, but it's kind of a unique idea, which I think with like this sort of play style could kind of separate it out from sort of like the same aspects of other games like this. The puzzle element sometimes is what people come back for and trying to find more optimal solutions. So a good example with this is, if you would like to like put it in like Plants vs Zombies terms, is I give you a set amount of economy and you've got to try and complete the waves that come ahead of you. Yeah, that's like a challenge run. You don't get to generate more income, you just have this income and you've got to spend the things wisely. This could be something like similar to that effect, where I give you so much income and you can spend it on any tower you want, but you've got to try and solve the puzzle efficiently. And these are the enemies you get through. With this, with the maneuverability, I think if you're giving me the ability to move about and not see the waves, I think I need a pause. Just so I can be like, okay, the enemies are coming from here, here, and here. If I don't get the pause, then I need to know what enemies are coming in the next wave and where they're coming from. Yeah? So essentially, you have different ways of time management and what's going on. So I either have active time management, so I can pause it, then apply my solution once I see what's coming, or I have the ability to see what's coming ahead of time and can plan for it accordingly. And that gives me the ability essentially to solve stuff again as a puzzle rather than it being sort of like completely fully active. But again, that's my own opinion. Like, I'm only literally putting that on my own opinion. The intent behind stuff is always very important, and I think the game kind of really shows the love and genuine care that's gone into it, from just the sort of art style and design and stuff like that, because you can really tell the effort that's gone into this as well. I like the simplistic kind of interface as well. Like, genuinely, like, keeping so simple is kind of very important in some cases, and yeah. Let's put that on the corner. I feel like that's kind of a good idea. Need to save a little bit here. Put you here. I do like the idea that I can only put stuff in places that I have an elixir. Upgrade turrets. Okay, that is cool. I will say now, that is a eureka moment if I've ever seen one, and I like that that's kind of go through. Again, the only issue I have with that is, like, I can't see what it does immediately. Oh, that is cool, though. So what happens if I set... Oh, that is cool. That is so cool. Okay, so those are really two cool things. I like that idea. Let's put that there. That's really cool, but again, like... Oh... Yeah, like... Okay, so I love that mechanic. I really do. That is kind of cool. The idea that you get kind of like these immediate potion effects within battle that you kind of apply to stuff, that is kind of like really unique. And I love that that actually changes the art style. Man, that must take so much effort. Like, well played. I mean, I'll say now that is something that I don't think enough people will appreciate until like it pops up as kind of like yeah, completely agree with that. So okay, that's changed some thought processes in mind for me. I'm now rethinking a lot of stuff. I'm really thinking on this. Okay, this is kind of like where I'd say like this is the overwhelming part. It's just like, there's so much going on that I don't know what to do. Again, that could be me nitpicking. I am not using these guys, so that's my own. Oh. They're immediate. Interesting. Oh, this has put a smile on my face. That's kind of cool. That is cool. So, shop-wise, I guess. What's this? Buy this tree bucket. Okay, fine, we'll buy it. I was a nerdy kid and never learned to hunt food properly. Then adulthood struck, and I've been on a perpetual empty belly. Most of my waking hours are devoted to my field of study. I don't have the time to chase after fish, no. Because I'm too socially awkward for the group hunt parties. This kind came with alternate food source, the treat bucket. You can pick up fishy treats here and there. Continue to show me fish to me. I reward you for your service handsomely with coins and some of my dolphin wisdom. There are some fish to get you started. Transaction routes. Okay. Okay, so your fishies just gives me coins. And then gives me intro. Okay, I'm not reading those because that's just, I didn't realize that was important. Oh, but okay, that's nice. I like that. That's really useful. The fact I can see the history of them as well. So, you begin regenerating health if you haven't taken damage for 5 seconds. If an endangered clam keeps sharing damage with you, you'll never get healed up. Okay, so constant damage is a problem. 5 seconds, defense is interesting. Got an extra frosty elixir, give it to a clam for an instant burst of pearls. That is very useful. Did not know I could do that. And that's something I would do because, again, most people are going to focus on offense rather than immediate defense. Turrets are classified by their card colors. Blue for combat, green for support, orange for one-time use. That is also good information. So, what I was going to say before. Okay, that's nice. I like the fact they give you that effect as well and tell you the differences and immediately says slow down. So I can't do anything there, but then, yeah, slow down attackers on contact. yeah, I like that mechanic. I like the fact that you can kind of do it in battle, which, so, this is kind of like something that I will kind of like, put forward as a thing that is on there. It's like, a lot of stuff happens very quickly, which means I don't have time to absorb it and take it all in, which not necessarily is a bad thing, but I want to absorb as much information as possible early on. So the ability to have a live pause and allow me to kind of look at the field and then essentially like select a unit and find out its stats and what the changes are. So like when I got this upgrade, I didn't know what it did. I had no idea. None whatsoever. Obviously frost is freeze and slows down, stops enemies, stuff like that. Like it's implied to a certain point, but I wouldn't know how to figure that out. And because everything is happening so fast, I have no way to kind of like think, like, is this good, is it bad type scenario? And like it would have been nice to be able to be like, apply this to a unit, it does this effect, and then if I apply to clams, like a tooltip to let me know that. There may be a tooltip, I can't remember, like, you know, I'm probably not paying much attention a little bit because there was so much going on. But that's kind of like my point is I don't have a way to slow the game down enough to kind of like process some points of this information that I'm getting unless a tooltip pops up. And again, that's me kind of nitpicking just because the game is so active. The ability to be able to like have a live pause that pauses everything and I can then kind of like assess stuff is kind of like even more important. But yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I think there's like a few more things we can have a look at as well. I'm probably going to leave it here for today because I've gone through a fair amount and there's probably more to go through. But I think like for like a first look and stuff and getting the interesting stuff on there and sort of the opening mechanics, I think this is like really interesting. I like it. It's kind of cool. The art design is really unique and interesting as well. Kind of just remind you of that sort of Plants vs. Zombies vibe stuff, level design wise, the booklet and everything else, give you the explanation. Yeah, it disappears on use. That's kind of like a big thing to point that out as well early on, like when you get it. So I think like some of it implies that like once you get something new, you instantly go and look at it, which sometimes is a little bit kind of like, okay, am I going to do that kind of scenario? It's kind of like the one thing that my mum always used to say to me was assume everyone is an idiot, including you, right? Or including yourself. So it's that kind of like thought process of like, okay, am I explaining everything correctly? Do I give them the information? Do I give them time to process that information? With this, the ability to be able to have a live pause would mean I can create the time myself to absorb the information, then go back in the action when I need to. Right? I said it's the only thing that I probably say about this that I probably say would be useful for the game. It's either you do that or you allow you to start waves at your own pace. Right? That's the sort of compromise. So everything is still live and active and keeps going on, but I can only start the wave, the next wave, when I want to start it, not when the game wants to start it. Those are your two options, really, if you want to put like a pause in as such. Again, I'm nitpicking. The intent and design of what the developer wants is absolutely fine. I completely understand either way. But again, that's sort of like my own personal feedback if we're going through it as well. Because, again, if stuff is kind of like all going on the screen, sometimes it's a little bit too much. But I do love the game. I think it's really cool. And yeah, if I was looking at this and sort of like this is the way it goes, like lean into these challenge modes a little bit more. Because that was so good. I love that challenge mode, and like having more stuff like that where it's more of a puzzle to solve is really the way where I think you can kind of like make what you're doing shine really well. Again, this is kind of a first look at Operation Octo. I might do a bit more of this, complete the whole demo out as well and give more feedback and kind of like go through it all as sort of a live reaction. But I think as a quick look, I think this kind of suffices to say that my first impressions are very positive. I like the idea of the game. It's all really interesting. There's obviously a few more stuff we can go through and find out as well. But yeah, this is going to be on my radar to watch out for when it does come out and release, which I think is about like, sort of like a few months away or so, a little bit less. But yeah, again, if you do enjoy these videos, do leave a like, subscribe to see more, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.